I'm Steve, that's Jerry. We are the hosts of the Rush Fancast, and the good folks at RUSHfest Scotland were kind enough to allow us to present our podcast to you today on their Facebook page.
Yeah, we interviewed Steve this week. We talked about the organization. We talked about how it started and all of the money it has raised. It's such a great organization, and we're really pleased that we had the opportunity to talk to Steve.
So here's the episode. Hope you enjoy it. It's the Rush Fancast. It's Steve and Jerry, as always. Jerry, what's up?
Not much, Steve. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. You can find us on Twitter at Rush Fancast. Instagram, we are The Rushcast. Email us, therushcast@gmail.com. And Jerry, I usually say the base intro is done by our good pal Lex, but today, Lex is taking a day off.
He did. He requested a day off, and we said, I guess.
He actually didn't request a day off. I'm just giving him a day off. What you heard at the beginning of the podcast is David King, a song called Closer to the Dave. Now, what is that, you ask, Jer?
What is that, Steve?
I'm not going to tell you. It's a tease.
Oh.
It's a tease. You're going to find out later in the podcast what that is. So stay tuned to find out about David King. I've got a Twitter poll for you, Jer, as I sometimes do.
That's right, sometimes.
A few weeks ago, we talked about signals, if you recall.
I do recall.
And we wondered if a lot of Rush fans jumped off the Rush train when Signals was released.
That's right.
So I asked the Twitterverse, what do you think of keyboard era Rush? Specifically the album Signals, Grace Under Pressure, Power Windows, and Hold Your Fire. Just a general, your thoughts on this era.
Okay.
The choices I gave were, love it, fantastic. That's choice one.
That's one choice. Two answers in one choice.
Choice two, I'm indifferent. It's okay.
Okay.
Choice three, I don't like it. Never did.
Oh, man. This is going to be hard.
Now, a couple of people picked the in-between of some of those because I could have given 5 choices, but I only gave 3. So what do you think the breakdown was?
What do you mean they picked the in-between? In the answer in the comments below?
Well, someone said, I don't love it, but I'm also not indifferent. I just kind of like it.
Oh, you should have.
Yeah. I should have had 4 choices.
Okay. Gotcha.
But anyway, people had to choose love it, indifferent, or don't like it.
I am, based on the emails that I received and from what seems like the Twitter audience that we have, I'm going to say love it.
Love it. 84%.
Yeah.
Landslide.
Yep.
Indifferent came in second, 13%. And don't like it, not surprisingly. I mean, our followers are Rush fans.
Right.
2%.
Yeah, I got a couple of emails saying that many fans consider the keyboard era to really start with Power Windows.
Right. A couple of people said that Signals didn't really qualify as the keyboard era, but you can argue either way.
Yeah. Do you want to do that for the next 20 minutes?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Do you have an email for me, Jer?
Oh, boy, do I.
Oh, I can't wait.
This is from Mark Walton.
Hey, Mark.
He says, really enjoying the podcast, guys. Following your latest discussion of Subdivisions, because he wrote this right after the Subdivisions.
Mm-hmm.
About Subdivisions.
I get it.
I hope you'll bear with me as I relate an anecdote that for me cast the lyrics in a whole new light. Back in 1999, myself and a friend spent a week in Toronto. We visited a lot of North American cities over the years, so it was an obvious choice and it's a great place in its own right. But of course, for me, it was largely a Rush pilgrimage. My mate Andy had no interest in the band, but he knew how much I loved them, so he happily tolerated me dragging him to various Rush landmarks. Massey Hall, sadly a week too late to see Alice Cooper play there, the Ontario Legislative Building from the cover of Moving Pictures, their Toronto Sidewalk Star, the Danforth and Pape intersection, and so on. So he went on a whole walking tour.
Yeah, I saw a couple of Rush things, but I didn't see all that. Wow, we have to go back there.
And then he says, we also took in a Blue Jays game, but most memorable was the CN Tower. We made a point of going up there just before sunset so we could have a meal and then watch the sun go down over the city. And as dark fell, suddenly Neil's line, in between the bright lights and the far unlit unknown, finally made sense to me. I'd heard it 1,000 times since it came out. Signals was the first studio album released after I became a fan, but only then did I fully understand what he was writing about. There below us was the brightly illuminated downtown, further out the band of suburban light, and then, in the distance, blackness. The Canadian wilderness, where no light shone, the far, unlit, unknown. It's almost impossible in this much smaller and more densely populated UK to find that sort of darkness, except maybe in parts of the Scottish Highlands. It's a moment that has stayed with me for 21 years since.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I've actually been to the top of the CN Tower, Jared, believe it or not.
Yeah? Was it at night?
No, it was not night, so I didn't have that epiphany. It was daytime, but it's a rotating restaurant.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. You're eating lunch, and while you're eating, it rotates really slowly, too.
I would just hope so.
You don't even really feel it moving. And when you're done with lunch, you're looking at a whole different section of the city. Or not just the city, but
yeah,
far away as well.
Yeah. That's cool, right?
Yeah, great.
So I wonder if Neil had that in mind.
Maybe he went to the top of the CN Tower.
Right. I always just thought it was the abstract far unlit unknown, but maybe he was inspired by the actual far unlit unknown.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for that email. We really appreciate it. So, Jared, a couple of weeks ago on the Rush Fancast, we had Jillian Marjanovic on.
That's true.
She's the creative director of RUSHCon here in the United States. So we thought it might be a good idea to have the man who runs RUSHfest Scotland on our show.
Yes, we did.
And we've accomplished that. Steve Brown, founder of RUSHfest Scotland. Welcome to the Rush Fancast.
Hi, Steve. Hi, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate it. Why don't we start by asking you your Rush origin story, Steve? When did you first hear of Rush? How did you become a fan?
Okay. I reckon around about 81, 82, so I'd be, 14-ish, and probably quite a familiar story. It was a friend's big brother. He loaned me a few albums. I was more into kind of indie, new wave stuff at the time originally, like, being over in the UK here, bands like the Stranglers, the Jam. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys.
Yep.
But yeah, so I went up to my friends and looked through his brother's LPs and came home with Black Sabbath's greatest hits, like the original one, with a kind of that lovely graveyard kind of cover on it. AC/DC Back in Black, 2112, Led Zeppelin 4, and A Farewell to Kings.
Oh, wow.
So it was a baptism of fire. That was it. I think I sold all my indie albums and, I still, I have since sold and bought. But, A Farewell to Kings, it's in 2112. I mean, straight into the deep end, and just A Farewell to Kings is still my favourite album of all time. Just phenomenal. So, yeah, that was my baptism.
And the rest is history, right?
Yeah.
Did you find any kind of similarities between like those kind of punkier bands maybe and Rush?
Not at the time, and not with those albums. But obviously, in retrospect, you have the Moving Pictures, Vital Signs. Yeah, a lot of you guys will know that Alex was inspired by Midge Ure, from Ultravox, the lead singer, but he's also a guitarist as well. And he had quite a unique guitar tone. And I believe Alex, they wore their influences on their sleeves. So they were influenced by quite a few of the UK bands in the 80s. And if you listen to, I think it's the middle 8 section of Vital Signs, you will recognise a track from the Vienna album by Ultravox. There's a track on there called All Stood Still. Check it out.
Oh, wow.
And it will sound very familiar. So I'm not, in fact, I don't know if I actually looked up to see what came first. But I think Ultravox just pipped him at the post there. So I've got a funny feeling. I don't think anybody was ripping anybody off on purpose. But so there was crossover in the later albums after the two that I first heard. You can obviously hear the British new wave come into Rush's sound.
Yeah, and Alex also wore his influences in his haircut.
On his head, I was going to say that. Yeah, the old Flock of Seagulls haircut. Yeah, fantastic. I'm kind of getting that way myself during lockdown here, guys, honestly.
So before we get into the Rush Fest, what kind of following does Rush have in Scotland? How big is Rush in Scotland?
Well, every time they came to Europe, they always played Scotland. Be it I think in the early days, they were more over in the capital, in Edinburgh. I think they just went for the venues that worked best for them. But the past few tours, I'm trying to think. The first time I saw them was Signals Tour, which was in the UK. That was 1983. I think it was the 24th of May as well.
Oh, wow.
1983. They did 2 nights in Edinburgh, but I only saw one. That was back in the day when probably I could only afford to go to one show or whatever, being still at school. But every time I saw them after that was always in Glasgow, just because Glasgow had the bigger venue. And it was, I think it's 7,000, 8,000 capacity, and it would sell out every year. In fact, in 2015, Glasgow opened up a new stadium, which was more like a 12,000 seater, and it had actually quite good acoustics for such a big shed. And I was really hoping they would have brought R40 to Europe to play in there. Knowing what we know now and what we kind of knew at the time, I thought that would have been a great way to go out if they played in, well, the venue's called the Hydro in Glasgow. But no, they always played the Scottish Exhibition Centre, which was, and I reckon it was, if it wasn't sold out, it was very close to being sold out. So, yeah, the following's there, and they'd play another handful of UK gigs whenever they came across to Europe. So, yeah, I think they say themselves they had a big following in the UK, and they recorded their a couple of albums here in Wales. They quite enjoyed being here. So, yeah, there is a following in Scotland.
So tell us about the beginnings of RUSHfest, Steve. How did you hatch the idea?
This is going back to, it would have been 2013. I play in a Rush tribute band as well. I play guitar. So, yeah, this Flock of Seagulls haircut might come in handy after lockdown. We were approached by Rush Yukon, which is like a European fan convention, which, well, at that time, it moved around the UK every year. It'd be one day a year fan convention in the UK. But that year, I was speaking to the organiser, and he basically said they're going to stay in this venue in England forevermore. So they had their venue, and basically it was never going to come to Scotland again. So that's when the light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, right, let's do one in Scotland and see how that goes. And yeah, it's happened every year since. So 2014 was our first one. And it's been a great success.
And what's like the organizing principle of it? Do you have a certain thing you do every year, or do you try to mix it up every year?
We've followed the same format. It's just an all day of Rush shenanigans, basically. We advertise it well in advance. It's a one-day event. Doors usually open at 1 p.m. and it goes through till about 3 in the morning. So, but all the main events finish about 10:30, 11. So if people have to go and get trains home, but the club that we've had it in has a rock disco on till 3 a.m. most weekends, so hence people can hang around, and because that's what I found from about 2011 onwards, when I was trying to go to as many Rush gigs as I could, it became almost a 50-50 mix between seeing the band themselves, seeing the show, but catching up with friends, making friends, and hence these fan conventions have been successful because it's a chance for us like-minded folks to all meet up.
Now, am I correct that the proceeds for RUSHfest go to charity? Is that correct?
Yes, it's all run by volunteers, and every penny profit we make goes to, we always choose a cancer charity. So we tend to stick to the same one 2 years in a row. So, and to date we've raised over £50,000, which I believe is about $65,000. So that's a kind of sideline, but it's also quite encouraging. And most years, just before we open the door, we're kind of breaking even. So, but I'm always of the mentality, if we make £5, it's still been worthwhile,
Yeah.
But we always come away with thousands, and it's like, wow, the generosity on the day, usually, by all the guys that come along. It's mainly guys. We do get girls as well.
Yeah.
In fact, yes, our top spot, thinking back, our biggest contributor was a lovely lady from Aberdeen, whose name I won't say just in case she doesn't want to be known. But everybody digs deep on the day with raffles and auction. We get prizes from SRO, signed items, and I think our best item to date was a baseball that Geddy donated, which was signed by all the guys, and it was signed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
When they're being done. Yeah, that was super special. We had Alan Weinrib, his brother, as our VIP that year via Skype. It was a Skype, sort of live Skype call. And but because of the contacts, etc. They sent that across, so that raised a lot of money. And I know the guy that won it, so I keep hassling him every year to give it back. But he keeps telling me that he's still the dog's still playing with it, you know.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, every year we and we try to, any sort of big item, really unique item like that, instead of it going to auction and for people with lots of money, we kind of do an online worldwide raffle. So for £5 or $8, for every £5 donated, they get allocated a number. So I know for a fact the guy that won it only put in like £20, and he walked away with the ball. So but it raised about £3,000 online.
That's a great idea.
So yeah, it was good. That was one of the guys that helped us in the past. It's either Mike Sword or Gordon Smith. I'll give the guys a name check. Because everybody dips in and out and helps. There's lots of people helping out all the time. So it was one of those guys' idea, and we've stuck with it every year. It's been a great way to raise lots of money without one person having to dip into the mortgage.
So you definitely have a relationship with SRO in general. Or how does that work out?
Yeah, well, my first trip to Canada in 2012, I caught up with a guy called Paul Bullieu, who has become a great friend, and he's come across to Scotland every year for RUSHfest Scotland, and he kind of knows Peggy and some of the folks that work at SRO. So through Paul, and I've met Peggy as well, and I've been to the offices, etc. So, but I tend to sort of work through Paul with the connections with SRO. So they're very generous. They've been great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, seem to be a very generous organization with their fans. You're having a new convention, and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're very helpful every year.
That's great.
And then the guys, even Neil, I know it's a kind of the myth that Neil always sort of stayed in the background, didn't want involved. Neil was the first to give us something special.
Wow.
Again, we didn't go to him directly. It was through, in fact, was it our first year or second year? One of our guys, in fact, it was Gordon Smith, one of the early guys that helped us out. He had a connection with Macallan whiskey, Neil's favourite. Mm-hmm. So through Macallan, we got to Neil.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. So we got him a bottle of Macallan malt, and he signed it. He signed the label.
Oh, wow.
So that it was obviously shipped to Neil in California, who signed it. It was then shipped to us, so we had it on the day. It was the online worldwide raffle, and it was won by a lady in Alaska. So,
wow.
So it's now, and I don't think she's opened it yet. But yeah, so and Neil also signed a symbol for us a year or so later.
That's great.
Personalised to the winner. So
oh wow,
yeah, no, so lovely touches there. We don't want to hassle the guys directly. We'd love for them to come across, but I mean, as Mary said the other week there from RushCon, no, it wouldn't be a good idea. We'd love for them to see them
yeah.
There's lovely golf courses here, Alex. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, we respect their privacy, and we're just very grateful to have such a fan convention every year. So yeah.
So did you have an event scheduled in 2020, Steve?
We did, and it was going to be our biggest yet. We're spread over 2 days. We had Jacob Moon coming across from Toronto to perform for us, and 2 VIPs in person were coming across. Terry Brown and Hugh Syme were all set to come across.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine how gutted we all were. But health comes first, so we can't... It was still really painful when I had to make the call and put up the announcement that it had to be basically postponed. We'll just moved the whole weekend across to next year. So, touch wood, we'll all be healthy and safe to travel, and we can move everything across. But we did have an online event, and we still raised £8,500 for charity.
Wow.
So so yeah,
that's great.
so that's without leaving the house. There's a lot to be learned. So yeah, we sell a lot of merch. We've got a really good shirt designer, a guy called Paul Tippett. He's a graphic designer by trade, and he does a lot of Rush themed shirts. So he does all our merch, and he did a really lovely Neil. We call it our Neil shirt. So that we sold a lot of them, and again, all the profit went to charity. So most of that $8.5 grand was from the sale of merch. So we're grateful to Paul for his time and talent. Everyone's doing everything for gratis, So, yeah.
And you're doing another great thing for charity, Steve. This coming Saturday, September 12th, would have been Neil Peart's 68th birthday. And on Saturday, you're releasing an album called Tributes, Songs for Neil Vol.1. Tell us about that. How did this come about?
Yeah, well, I think just, I'm, as well as playing in a Rush tribute band, that my day job is playing music. It's playing in a function band, weddings, pubs, clubs. Been doing it for about 27 years. So during lockdown, I still can't gig. There's still no sign of things opening up in the UK for live music of any sort. So I've got a lot of time in my hands, and it's just a flash of inspiration. Having organised RUSHfest Scotland for a few years, I've been in touch with quite a few tribute acts. I mentioned Jacob Moon earlier. He did a live stream for us as part of our online event back in June. I was planning to go to RUSHfest Brazil this year, but that was nipped in the bud, literally, just as almost I was about to get on the plane and COVID hit. And a couple of bands I would have seen in Brazil, Fleesh and Three Snow Dogs. I'd been in touch with them already. I had already a lot of contacts with other Rush tributes, and I'd heard the quality of their performances and recordings. So I just thought, let's try and put an album together. And again, all for charity. And it just all started falling into place quite quickly. Paul Tippett again designed the cover. And because we've been speaking to Hugh already, I actually got in touch with Hugh and Terry to give us a couple of quotes for liner notes. So, and we sent them what we had as a cover at the time. And Hugh, being Hugh, lovely chap, he came back with some lovely words and a couple of tips for what to do with the cover. So we made a few changes, and we included the fire hydrant from Signals because we've got a Dalmatian on there. Yeah, the cover is quite. I'm very proud of the cover. It's got a portrait of Neil done by a great artist friend of ours, Charlie Roy, and Paul Tippett has kind of made that to look like graffiti on a wall. Yeah, with a Dalmatian sort of looking forlornly at the wall. So it's a beautiful cover. And then, let's say, Hugh told us about how Rush and working with Neil, they always liked a little bit of whimsy in their covers, so not to make it too sort of mournful. So just having the red fire hydrant there really made it pop. And we were originally going to bring it out in blue vinyl because the original cover had a blue theme to it. But then once we had the hydrant in, we just thought, let's go red. And Hugh told us that red was Neil's favourite colour. So, little things like this, it all kind of tied in. Yeah, and all the I just put out a couple of shouts online. Any bands want to send in the tracks, and we're almost set for Volume 2 to come out in March.
Oh, great!
Yeah, so it's got legs. We did a crowdfunder, so we covered our expenses right away. So because it's for charity, I would hate to. Well, no one wants to be kind of out of pocket, especially in the current climate. But I thought it seems to be a good enough idea, and people did buy into it in advance. So so we have 167 songs to choose from. If you want to go through the I do believe that's the figure, yeah. So we could bring out 20 albums. There could be a Volume 20.
Well, as long as people keep buying them, right? Keep making them, right?
Well, yeah, and the bands are out there. I mean, Three Snow Dogs, when I just asked it, when they got in touch, I said, well, let us know what tracks you've got, and then I can start working, putting a sort of set list together. And Three Snow Dogs have actually recorded the entire Counterparts album.
Wow.
So I mean, that's dedication for you. Yeah. It's not like just doing the odd track here and there, maybe the odd live track. They went in the studio and recorded the entire Counterparts album. So, there's lots of really interesting stuff out there.
Wow. That was what I was going to ask you was, how was the song selection process for the album? Did you have a determining factor? Did you want to include some songs over other songs? Did you want it to flow in a certain way?
Well, initially it was just to see what was out there. What would come, who was up for it, and what did they have? And then, I'm just looking at the track list just now, trying to remember how and why. Jacob's Subdivisions, that was a kind of no-brainer. Yeah. Because I'm sure a lot of the guys and girls out there would know Jacob from his Subdivisions rooftop video from 2008.
What a great interpretation of that song.
Phenomenal. And he's been such a great guy through the whole process. When we first got in touch with him months ago, and He's been really helpful. So that was a given. And he's also given us another couple for future volumes.
Steve, why don't we play a little bit of that?
Yeah.
So our listeners can hear some of this song. I think that'd be great.
Excellent.
So this is Jacob Moon, Subdivisions.
Sprawling on the fringes of the city in geometric order, an insulated border in between the bright lights and the far unlit unknown. Growing up, it all seems so one-sided. Opinions are provided, the future's pre-decided, detached and subdivided in the mass production zone. Nowhere is the dreamer or the misfit so alone. In the high school halls, in the shopping malls, conform or be cast out. In the basement bars, in the backs of cars, be cool or be cast out. Any escape might help to smooth the unattractive truth that the suburbs have no charms to soothe the restless dreams of youth.
That is just phenomenal, Steve.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that it's all come together. It's great.
Why don't we play Three Snow Dogs next, since you mentioned them? They did, you
Okay.
said, Counterparts in its entirety, and on this particular album, we've got Nobody's Hero.
Yep.
I knew he was different in his sexuality. I went to his parties as a straight minority. It never seemed a threat to my masculinity. He only introduced me to a wider reality. As the years went by, we drifted apart. When I heard that he was gone, I felt a shadow cross my heart. But he's nobody's hero. Saves a drowning child, cures a waste in the seas. Hero lets the creeper down plane, solves great mysteries. Hero, not the handsome actor who plays a hero's role. Hero, not the glamour girl who'd lost to sell her soul. If anybody's buying, nobody's hero.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about this band? Where are they from, Steve?
Okay, Three Snow Dogs. They were going to be the headlining band in RUSHfest Brazil this year. So that's how I found out about them. They are from, I hope I pronounced this right, Kushima, which is the town where RUSHfest Brazil actually takes place. So these guys were local to RUSHfest Brazil. Three-piece, sounding phenomenal. And I know the guys won't mind me saying this, but they did want to send me different mixes. They wanted to touch things up a little bit more before the final album version. So they cut it fine. Let's put it that way. We'd already kind of mixed and mastered the album, ready to go off for production. And Gilson came back and said, Steve, can we just make one, we've made one final change. Can we get another version? Yeah, okay, guys, if you're quick. So yeah, they're very particular. Yeah, so that's how, I don't know much more about them apart from Brazil, three-piece, and they sound phenomenal.
Now, this next band is one that Jerry and I think is just phenomenal. Fleesh.
Yeah.
And I've heard their entire album. It's great.
Likewise, yeah. They've again, Brazilian. They are from Rio. We were, again, supposed to see them this year, so it's a sore point. But hopefully that's all going on. Again, they've just taken the whole festival and moving it to March next year. So fingers crossed that's going to go ahead. But yeah, like you, I checked out their whole album and it's phenomenal. I actually wanted to put on their version of Here Again, just because it's such a deep cut. And Gabby, the female singer, just brings a whole new element to the songs, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Why don't we listen to something from them before we continue? This is the Fleesh version of The Garden.
In the rise and the set of the sun, till the stars go spinning, spinning round the night. Oh, and it is what it is, and forever. It's movement and memory and flight. The arrow flies while you breathe. The hours tick away. The sounds tick away. The watchmaker has time up his sleeve. The hours tick away. They tick away. The measure of a life is a measure of love and respect. So hard to earn, so easily burned. In the fullness of time, a garden to nurture and protect. It's a measure of a life. The treasure of a life is a measure of love and respect. The way you live, the gifts that you give, in the fullness of time, it's the only return that you expect. The future disappears into memory, with only a moment between. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen. Forever dwells in that moment. Hope is what remains to be seen.
Phenomenal.
I was gonna say the thing that I love about their version of The Garden is that, she feels it. Whatever that song, that song touches on so many things about life in general,
Yeah.
and she nails it.
Yeah.
Every single word in that song. It's amazing.
Yeah, she's got such a soulful voice, and it's just with all the other Rush tributes. Everyone's trying to find a Geddy, which is the holy grail. It's never going. There can be only one. To use the Scottish Highlander film quote, there can be only one, and there is, and his name's Geddy. But there are a few out there that phenomenal musicians, but then Fleesh have just gone with Gabby, and phenomenal. So please check out their album. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
It is called The Next Hemisphere.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Just an album of Rush covers. And as I mentioned earlier, originally I just loved their version. I love the whole album, but I love their version of Here Again. But it was Paul Tippett when it came to do the artwork, and I sent him the track list. He went, maybe that's a bit deep for this volume. Maybe leave that for a later one. And he said, and I was thinking about leaving The Garden for a later one because that's the kind of the heavier track. But no, it works, and especially where we've got it on the album, it just comes after the trees. And that actually finishes with some sort of garden noises, sort of birds twittering and bees buzzing, and it segues straight into the garden. So that kind of, so when it came to choosing the tracks and the running order, things kind of naturally kind of fell in. That, you know, it just kind of made sense. But I'm sure people will have their own opinions on the running order. But yeah. So it came down to sort of recording quality, and we brought it out in vinyl as well. But to save kind of expense, it's only the first 8 tracks made the cut for the vinyl. So you know that was a deciding factor as well. So those are all studio cuts, and the rest are kind of a mixture of live and a couple of the studio tracks.
Why don't we check out a couple more? This band I've heard of, is Lotus Land from the United States, Steve?
They are indeed. I think they're spread over, I think one is in Rhode Island, another one's in Maryland. I could be wrong. But I first saw them when I was in Toronto at RUSHCon in 2012. They were the main headlining band, and they blew me away. So I've kind of known those guys for about 8 years now.
Well, let's listen to their version of Cinderella Man.
Traveled rich to the city. He had a need to discover a use for his newly found wealth. Because he was human, because he had goodness, because he was moral, they called him insane. Delusions of grandeur, visions of splendor, a manic depressive who walks in the rain. Eyes wide open, heart undefended, innocence untarnished. Cinderella man, doing what you can. They can't understand what it means. Cinderella man, hang on to your plan. Try as they might, they cannot steal your dream. Whoa!
So this version of Cinderella Man is just on fire, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The tone that they get on the guitar is perfect too. I love it.
Yep. Well, I believe he uses the Hughes and Kettner Triamp. Bob Chatrand, I would believe his surname, the guitarist. Like I say, I saw the guys in 2012, and I've seen videos since. And so that was the kind of amp that Alex used for the last few tours,
Oh,
as well as others. But I think it's Snakes and Arrows was when he first used Hughes and Kettner. So Bob has got the tone.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
So one more, Steve. This one Jerry and I were talking about before we started talking to you. The name of the band is Moving Pictures, and it's their version of Afterimage.
Suddenly you were gone from all the lives you left your mark upon. I remember how we talked and drank into the misty dawn. I hear the voices. We ran by the water on the wet summer lawn. I see the footprints. I remember. I feel the way you would. I feel the way you would. I feel the way you would. Try to believe, but you know it's no good. This is something that just can't be understood. I remember the shouts of joy skiing fast through the woods. I hear the echoes. I learned your love for life. I feel the way that you would. I feel your presence. I remember
I just think this is phenomenal. It's just such a different take on such a fabulous song.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you know, but that's my band.
Oh, is it really? It's great.
Really? You didn't
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Honestly? Really? You guys haven't done your homework.
We didn't do our homework. We are unprepared all the time.
But that's great. I've just hit the jackpot. Wait till I tell the guys. Well, yeah, we the way that came about, we lost a friend, a good friend, who's, believe it or not, there is another Rush tribute band in Scotland called Clockwork Angels. They're a 5-piece. Their keyboard player, John Eady, tragically passed away in November last year. So we, myself and our Geddy, John Paor, we thought of doing, yourself, because of the nature of the lyrics. To me, Afterimage always lent itself to being, always wanted to hear it as a kind of ballad, So we gave it that treatment. So John, phenomenal musician, he's doing all the keyboards. We gigged it a couple of times just before COVID, and in fact, I think the first time we gigged it was we had a gig in Aberdeen about a week after we'd all heard about Neil passing. So it was doubly poignant, because let's say the original idea was written for our friend John that passed away, and then when Neil's passing, it was like, okay. But when we gigged it, it was just purely piano, vocals, and I was doing some atmospheric guitar. But then when it came to the album, it's a lockdown recording. We're all just recording that in our house. The drummer's got his kit setting up in his living room.
Wow.
So it's all, we did it. We've got a really good engineer, our full-time sound engineer. So he went to our drummer, Mark's, and mic'd up his kit, and Chris mixed that track for us. There ended up being 55 tracks to mix, and we're all trying to do it remotely. So, yeah, because John went to town with the string section. We've got we have the Moving Pictures string ensemble on there, and it's all like John and his magic fingers. But he's done a wonderful arrangement, and then I will give the game away. So it starts off as a ballad, and we kind of speed out with a bit of Gilmore-esque atmospheric guitars, and then we bang straight into the real version for the final section.
I was not expecting that when I heard it. I was like, oh, this is going to be a ballad. It's great from the beginning of the ballad. I'm like, wow, because it really brings out the emotional context of the song, especially the line, that is just one of the most perfect lines Neil has ever written. I feel the way you would.
That's the one. Yep, absolutely.
I mean, entire books have been written about loss, and he says everything you need to know in one line.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, this is going to be great, the ballad, the whole thing. But then, really, it starts taking off at the end. I was surprised and elated.
Well, thanks to lockdown, that's why we thought we've got time to work. Well, we don't. We've got a deadline, but let's get our act together and really. So it was quite frustrating. There was a lot of not arguments, but I think we all suffered a bit of imposter syndrome. Have you heard of that? Do you know imposter syndrome? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We experience it every day. Right now, we're experiencing it.
Yeah. Don't. I mean, to tell the listeners, we're doing this on Zoom, and I'm looking at myself on the screen here, and I don't recognise this guy. I'm like, who's doing what's going on? I've never had a beard in my life, and flock of seagulls. I've got the full nest going on.
Yep.
Yeah. So all that's kind of going on, and we're actually going to meet up this coming weekend for our first rehearsal together. The last time we saw each other was when we gigged together in Glasgow in February. So, so the whole imposter syndrome thing, recording something, listening back, being super critical, overly critical. And then once we played that track to a few close friends, we did ask them, please give us your real opinion. Are we really blowing things here by, is this blasphemy? What have we done to such a great song? But thank you guys for saying that, not knowing it was us. So yeah,
it's good that we didn't do our homework.
Good, yes, it pays.
And it's just a perfect song to include on this first tribute to Neil. I mean, you have to have Afterimage on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, the other guys do. Well, as we mentioned, Fleesh have Gabby on vocals. Jacob does Jacob's thing. When he's live, it's all loopers and samples that he's playing live. And most of the bands do what what we all do most of the time. Moving Pictures is a regular tribute. We try and play the songs as close as we can to the originals. But with that one, we had fun with it, and yeah, we still want to go back and redo it though, because we'd like to do it in a proper studio. But yeah, we're very happy with the way it turned out.
Now you're splitting the proceeds for this album between 2 charities, right? And one of those is the Glioblastoma Foundation.
Yeah, it's as I mentioned earlier, RUSHfest Scotland, we tend to choose the same charity for 2 years. So this year and next, our chosen charity was Cancer Support Scotland. But with this album being so particular for Neil, we'd heard about the Glioblastoma Foundation Neil Peart Research Award. So the foundation itself is based in the USA. So I contacted them and told them what we're all about, and obviously they're very happy for us to make any contributions. So yeah, so all profits are going to be split equally between those 2 charities.
And Steve, tell us about the event you have coming up on Saturday.
So on the 12th of September, we will be having another live online event from our RUSHfest Scotland Facebook page. So if anybody would like to go to Facebook and just search for RUSHfest Scotland, like our page, and from 7 p.m. UK time, I believe we're 5 hours ahead of East Coast America. We're going to run for about 2 or 3 hours, and we'll do a playthrough of the whole album with videos from each band, and that's the official release date of the album.
And how can people get this great album?
Well, copies are available from our main website, which is all the W's and rushfestscotland.co.uk. So it doesn't matter uppercase, lowercase. This is rushfestscotland.co.uk, and you'll see links in there and all our lovely merch, and there's a page on the website dedicated to Songs for Neil.
So Jerry, I think next year we may have to go to Scotland. What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
That would be phenomenal.
It would be.
Yeah, I'm sure I could get you a couple of tickets.
Maybe.
Do you know the dates yet, Steve?
Yeah, we're looking at it's in May 21 and 22. So like we say, we're spreading over 2 dates this year. Next, we've moved to a bigger venue in Glasgow, and on the Friday night we were having an evening with Syme, Brune and Moon. So it was going to be a live, obviously the guys are coming over, so it's going to be a live chat on stage with Terry Brown and Hugh Syme.
Oh, nice.
With some music from Jacob. And then Saturday on the 22nd was going to be our usual all-day event in Glasgow. So yeah, you guys are very welcome. Love to have you. Anybody, everyone's welcome. There are still some tickets available. So yeah, we sold out this year, but some, because of COVID, we offered everybody refunds if they wanted them. Some of them did take refunds. So but yeah, if it goes through the roof again, we'll just change venue. So yeah, we'd love to have you over. That'd be great.
So before we go, we thought it would be cool to use one of the tracks on the album for the open and close of the podcast, and we picked this instrumental track called Closer to the Dave. Tell us about this one.
Oh, that is phenomenal. You guys are so good. My friend David King, he's going to be over the Jacob. Yeah, well, David King, I've only known him through Rush for about the past 8 years or so, since I started playing with Moving Pictures. He's always come along to all of our gigs and then every RUSHfest Scotland. He's a phenomenal guitarist. And during lockdown, he was putting up some just solo instrumental videos of him playing some original tunes. He's got 2 or 3 albums out of original material. And he's just such a tasty guitarist. He has the tone. He has got just a beautiful sound. It's mainly Closer to the Heart, but as you'll hear, there's elements of other songs in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dave's also in a phenomenal original prog band called Abel Gans. So I would ask everyone to check out Abel Gans. They've just got a new album out. And so yeah, David King, it's his instrumental version of Closer to the Heart with a couple of twists, so hence Closer to the Dave.
Nice, nice. So you heard that at the beginning of the podcast. We'll play more of it at the end. Steve Brown, thank you so much, founder of RUSHfest Scotland. Thanks for joining us on the Rush Fancast.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Steve. And keep up the good work, guys. Love it.
Oh, thanks.
So, Jarrett, looks like we have an open invitation to go to Scotland. I'm very excited.
I know. I've been waiting for one. I was waiting for years for someone to just invite me to Scotland so I could go.
And now we're going.
I'm like a vampire. I can only be invited places,
So
to step into places.
hopefully when COVID is over, they can schedule this and we'll be on our way to Scotland.
Yeah, and he said he has an inside track to tickets for us, so that's good.
Yes, that is very cool. And we want to mention that this is all for charity again, and it's a great thing that Steve's doing.
Yeah, I mean I think that's why Rush and their organization is involved in it, because it's all for charity. If it were just a money making venture, they might not get all the cool stuff that they do.
So again, the release date of the album, Tribute Song for Neil Volume 1, is September 12th. They're going to have an online event on Facebook on Saturday. Search for RUSHfest Scotland, like their page, and join them for the event.
Yes, and September 12th, of course, is Neil's birthday.
Right. It would have been Neil's 68th birthday. This is all happening at 7 o'clock UK time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that's the time to join Facebook. They're going to do a playthrough of the whole album, videos from each band. And Jared, I believe you have the website to get the record.
Yeah, you can order the vinyl, the CD, get a download. And if you get the vinyl and the CD, you get a free download at rushfestscotland.co.uk.
Awesome. It's all for a great cause. We thank Steve so much for joining us. That was great.
It was.
And what a nice guy, too.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
We only have nice guys on this show, and girls.
I was just going to say, were you expecting something else?
No, I mean, all Rush fans are just nice people. It's the craziest thing.
The ones we meet so far, yeah. Somewhere there's going to be one Rush fan who just walks up to us and punches us in the face.
Yes. We have a great set of guests next week. We're having 3 very cool Rush fans on the show. Little teaser. So join us next week, our secret guest. Jared, I hope you have a quote for me.
I do, and it's from A Farewell to Kings, which I believe Steve said was his favorite album.
Because it was recorded nearby his home.
That's right. And it is, when they turn the pages of history, when these days have passed long ago, will they read of us with sadness for the seeds that we let grow?
Nice. Very nice. And we leave you with the sounds of David King again, Closer to the Dave. Jared, take care.
All right, you too, Steve.